I think Dark Souls is the best game trilogy ever made, and before you crucify me, let me talk about it. Dark Souls is a game series known mostly for its difficulty. I'm not going to lie about that, it's true. You don't hear most people talking about the story or the graphics. They are talking about, how difficult the bosses are, how long it took them to clear areas, and stuff like that. But there's so much more to these games than meets the eye. So let's get into it. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be talking about the main trilogy. But let's discuss kind of the family tree before we get into it. So this one over here somewhere, Demon Souls. It's the follow to all these games, and it's a good game, but definitely doesn't receive as much attention as the other ones. This one, Dark Souls, is kind of like the cool big brother. He's going to show you how to do things. He's going to take you out and do cool things with you, but he's going to show you how life is. But this one, Dark Souls 2, that's kind of like the rebellious middle child. He just wants to break out of Big Bro's shadow, and he wants to be his own person, but he can't help to be like his brother. It's just in his personality. This one, Dark Souls 3, is the young brother. He wants to be just like Big Bro and be cool, but he can't help but bring his own personality traits in with that. So, but then these two over here, Bloodborne and Sekiro, they're kind of like cousins to the really cool family, but they're entirely different in some ways, but they're also kind of the same, but they're also way cooler in some ways. But you would never know that because they get overshadowed by these three. And makes sense? No? Okay. But we're gonna go ahead and talk about the flaws of these games first. So I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about the flaws in the Dark Souls series, because it has some. All games have flaws, even the great ones. Just look at the Halo series, Doom, Uncharted, Mario, Crash, Mortal Kombat. Any of those games, you can think about a questionable game that was not received very well. I'm looking at you, Halo 5. Dark Souls is not a stranger to that, and by that I mean Dark Souls 2. All the Dark Souls games have some critiquable material, but if you're gonna pick one to critique, most people are gonna pick Dark Souls 2. It just takes the cake. Don't get me wrong, the game's good. It's a good game. Me and my friends always talk about it being a good game, just not a good Dark Souls game. But so it's got some flawed parts. For instance, the game at times is just hard for being hard's sake, and that's different from Dark Souls 1 and 3. It just kind of throws enemies at you, and it's just like just have a bunch of enemies and figure it out, or run down this cave while you're getting shot by a bunch of poison darts that you can't do anything about. So it can be frustrating at times. There's so many enemies, and at times in all the games, especially Dark Souls 2, there's kind of no sense of direction. This is a big problem in Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 1 and 3, they don't hold your hand, but you usually have a path forward, and you think you know where you're going. But Dark Souls 2 can just kind of leaves you out in the road. You're just like where am I supposed to go? What do I do? Obviously I have a lot of good things to say about these games. They're some of my favorites. I think that they're probably one of the best game trilogy ever made. So I'm going to split the good things into a few different categories, starting with gameplay. The gameplay of Dark Souls is the heavy hitter. That's what's going to keep people coming back for more. But it's an action RPG, so there's a lot of exploring around for items and weapons to see what, if you can find some better equipment, or this item that exploits this weakness, etc., etc. But the combat is really where this game shines. You can generally use any kind of combat style, I guess you could say, in any Souls game. I have a tendency to use huge two-handed weapons and just kind of get one big whack, do a bunch of damage, and then I have to kind of dance around and wait for my next moment. Some of my friends like rolling around quickly and using dex weapons and just kind of slashing all up in there. And then one of my friends likes to be a mage. There's literally anything in between that and any combination of those classes that you could play Dark Souls, and you could enjoy the game, and you can find your own way to do it. And I love that. And I think that is so important for a lot of games, is to give people their play style. It has its own idea of what it wants you to do, but if you can mold it to you, that I feel like that's amazing, and that's something that really sets it apart. The game is so well balanced for how all those playstyles work that you just have to find the strengths and weaknesses for your playstyle, and you can, if you can execute it properly, you'll be able to have success. Level design. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Dark Souls is so difficult, how could it possibly be the best game trilogy? Well, here's a secret. It's not that hard. A lot of times, people's frustration, mine included, come from trying to go against the game. Like I said in my intro to Dark Souls video, if you listen to the game, you're going to have a much easier time playing the game. The game's going to show you what to do. It's not going to hold your hand, which is an amazing thing that I'll get a little bit more into. But the thing that I think about the most is, the first time when you arrive at Firelink Shrine as a new player, you could go right into Undeadburg, or you could go left into the graveyard. If you go into the graveyard, you're going to have a bad time. The skeletons there are not meant to be fought at that moment, and they just kind of suck to fight, period. But if you talk to the Crestfallen Warrior, he kind of gives you a little suggestion about going up to Undeadburg and ringing the bell. So it's going to give you hunts and nudges in a certain direction. Whether or not you listen is completely different. I found that after playing Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2 felt much easier in some ways, despite the fact that Dark Souls 2 has some kind of obtuse sections, and Dark Souls 3 felt even easier. And then going back to Dark Souls 1 felt, super easy. I'd already played the game, so I guess that was part of the reason, but still. And I felt like this was because I started listening to the game. You look at where the map is going, look at your enemies, look at what their weaknesses are, and use that accordingly instead of just trying to just go straight through and not think about it. But the game really tries to help you out, and is a lot about learning and learning what you can and can't do. But like I said, nothing's perfect. There are some, obtuse sections. I talk about Dark Souls 2 a lot because it has the most of those sections, but Dark Souls 1 and 3 have their fair share of sections, don't get me wrong. So now, I'm going to get into the story and lore. It's unique in its own way, as you can experience as much or as little as you'd like. I think about, the Elder Scrolls or Fallout. If you just want to go through and fight the enemies and bosses and really not care about what's going on behind the scenes, who is the Lord of Cinder, all that garbage, you just go right ahead. But if you want to go exploring and talk to every NPC and read all the items descriptions, you're going to find a rich and well-written lore underneath that. I can't tell you how many times one of my friends has talked about the lore, but I have no idea because, I haven't read all the stuff or all the items or talk to every NPC because that's just not my style of play, but it's very much his style of play. But the lore is very interesting from the things that he said, and it's just every character has a purpose, every character is put there for a reason, and that's where DS2 is going to, or Dark Souls 2 is going to pull up some of its slack. While some of the gameplay elements aren't as great as the others, it has an amazing bit of lore in all the items and all the characters. All the characters have great lore, and they have a good story that's written very well. So replayability. All these games have amazing replayability. This ties back in with gameplay. There's so much to do and explore that you can't possibly do it all in a first playthrough, whether it's trying out a new class or an item combination or talking to different NPCs or finding another quest. There's plenty to explore. You can do literally anything, and there's just so much more to do after the first time that you've played it. So that's just some of the things that Dark Souls does extraordinarily well. I could sit here for hours and tell you how the game gets the little details right, but I'm going to leave you with a couple last points. One, the Dark Souls Trilogy is ageless. You could pick it up at any time, and it's not going to feel super old. It's going to look very well. Dark Souls 1 still to this day looks not bad. It's showing its age a little bit, but it's not bad by any means, and they're all still playable. And I also think another thing that a lot of the great games that you think about, I think about Skyrim, I think about some of the Total Wars that were classics. They all had a lot of modding support, and that's what Dark Souls has. I know that there are plenty of mods, but the biggest mod is the randomizer, which adds even more replayability onto that. And I think that's what really makes a game great, is the community that builds up the game and makes it into something new. This combined with the fact that, if a game had any one of the points that I've mentioned, it would be considered a good game. But Dark Souls has all of these. All of these points come together in one game that is just amazing. The atmosphere is just right. The gameplay is just right. The replayability is great. everything adds into this great story and this great game that really holds a special place in my heart.